Welcome to Jump Shots from the Goal Line. I'm your host, Jonathan Dugan. I'm joined, as always, by my wonderful co-host, Mr. John Henningsen. John, we had a pretty big weekend in sports. I guess not weekend. I guess just, since Monday. The absolute ass whooping of a lifetime happened in the college football championship. We kind of previewed that game. At least we tried to the best of what we thought would happen. Turns out the plethora of Georgia fans were pretty right when it came to their comments on our TikTok channel. What were your thoughts on that game, buddy?
I think the same as everybody else. That was just brutal, right? I mean, like as far as like saddling up, you're like, come on, man. And I was like, all right, it's in LA. It's a little sketchy. I was like, all right, pentatonic singing the national anthem. I'm like, not ideal, but I'm not going to get down. Stay focused. This could still be good. Then they started playing football, and it became pretty clear pretty quickly that. But dude, it wasn't. It was like a little, like nothing about it was surprising, which is what was sad, or like,
I mean,
or what made it, I don't know.
You say
like,
that, but 67-7 or 65-7 or whatever it was. I mean, that is surprising.
I mean, it was surprising, but like really though, like we talked about. We talked about Georgia all year, and we were kind of like waiting for it. And this is kind of what those Alabama teams did too, right? Like everybody nitpick at they only beat Mississippi State by a couple touchdowns. Oh, Auburn was close at halftime. And it's like kind of the same kind of thing that was happening with Georgia all year. And then you got that full load of what that arsenal looks like on back-to-back weeks where, yeah, they barely survived. And if you're Ohio State, which, by the way, we can talk about that. But to me, they're the biggest loser in this just because they make a field goal, right? Or hang on to that lead somehow. And, like, in my mind, I can't see how they're not national champions. Well, I can't unsee what I saw with TCU. Like, great story, all of that, but ultimately, I don't know. I get surprising because I thought TCU had a little magic, but it's not surprising because it's the Georgia we've been talking about the whole time.
Yeah, dude, it was kind of like watching a car crash, except one of the cars is a fully loaded semi-truck, and the other one was a Pinto. Like it was rough, man.
Good Pinto reference.
Yeah, that was a good
Everybody
one.
uses the Prius now, so that felt really good, old school reference for me. I enjoyed that, Dugan.
Yeah, you gotta bring the Pinto back. If they're bringing the Bronco back, might as well bring the Pinto back.
Yeah.
Like to start the game off, 10-7. Yeah, Georgia had all the momentum in the world, but you're like, okay, maybe if TCU settles in here, they can make it a game. They didn't at any point. Max Duggan looked awful. He was completely out of his element. That defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. And you made the absolute perfect point in our group chat that this was the Georgia team that we expected to see all year, that we didn't really see them blow out anybody except Oregon. And this was the TCU team that Josh Neighbors expected to see. So, shout out to him. That truly did look like a 7-5 team. It sucks because, like you said, dude, like they had kind of the team of destiny feel. They had a lot of magic behind them. They shocked the world against Michigan. They looked good in conference play basically all year. They had a bunch of comebacks all year, so that magic you referenced was very much apparent. But good Lord, dude. 65-7. Like you and I talked before the show, like, dude, how do we even, drag this one out? How do we really diagnose this? And really the only thought I have on this game is, congrats to Georgia fans. I put a TikTok out there basically eating my words about Stetson because he had a hell of a game. Like, incredible. Yeah, he's 25. Yeah, like he has an incredible team around him. Right, he's got five or six 5-stars. A lot of them are on the offensive line. He's got the best tight end group in America. That defense is loaded, but homie was making plays. I mean, he was putting the ball on a rope. He was delivering it incredibly well. That was the Stetson Bennett that Georgia fans tried to tell me that he was all year, which he was good this year. I'm not going to sit here and say he wasn't good, but he was never that good. That kind of player right there, that's like a first round talent. I don't care how old he is. It's just NFL teams are smart enough to know that's not the guy you're going to get week in and week out. But congrats to Georgia. The only downside to this is it just fuels the argument that it's the SEC and everybody else, right?
Yeah.
Like we get an upstart TCU team coming out the Big 12. Big 12 has been kind of a topic of conversation the last couple of years because they were losing teams, and the style of play hasn't always been conducive to winning, a la Oklahoma, at least on the big stage. And then they go out and beat one of the best Big Ten teams in the country. And then they just got absolutely their ass handed to them by an SEC team. And granted, Georgia is probably this iteration of Georgia is probably one of the best teams of all time. I don't think that's an argument. But God, man, like now all we're going to hear until next season on ESPN, on any article, whatever, is it's the SEC and everybody else.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I was like, this is not. If you're in the Big 12 and you're trying to make any sort of argument for the SEC, this is not what you wanted to see. You thought you got
Or the Big Ten.
Yeah, you thought you got rid of Lincoln Riley and that this problem went away. It actually got worse. Like it seemingly is worse. So yeah, man, it's just I mean I don't it is what it is with the SEC, man. Like they're good. I mean, they're really good. Like it's a really good football conference, and certainly it's really like where it's heaviest at the top. I mean, Georgia doesn't look much different than what those Bama teams looked like, and I guess we could talk. That was funny, like though that little moment between Pollock and Saban talking about Georgia taking over the football world and Saban having to kind of just wear it. But like, yeah, and I'm like not even sure what the face was. Like, I don't know if that like sparked something like really deep in him or like I don't know. It was like an interesting face, but yeah, it was definitely. I mean, that made it worth it. I guess that was like a fun little moment. But outside of that, man, like that game was just not fun, dude. Like,
No,
it did have
at
some
all.
ramifications into next year, but it's like not fun.
And I think Nick Saban was sitting there thinking, well, damn it, here's Kirby, former assistant of mine, just going out there and replicating exactly what I did during my huge run, my dynasty. And I'm friends with a few Bama fans that are also Ravens fans, and we were all talking about just the absolute can of ass whooping that was going on. And he even made the comment that Kirby really did go out there and recruit exactly how he would have recruited at Alabama when he was an assistant, and just truly recreated that team that was such a powerhouse. And you're not going to hear any argument from me, right? They built along the trenches. That offensive line was money. That defensive line was money. Then you have the big boys, the tight end room that were incredible. They have that little wide receiver out there that's just killing people, and a quality NCAA quarterback that probably won't amount to everything that Georgia fans are thinking he's going to amount to in the NFL. But God damn it, if he's not a good college quarterback, a la, Greg McElroy or somebody like that. They built that thing the exact way you would expect them to build it, and it's just crazy to me to think that the SEC does this every year. They always have some powerhouse team, whether it's Bama, whether it's Georgia. Georgia's been good for a decade now, right? Like they're always close to it. They could never overcome Bama, and now they're a different level even than Bama now. And their toughest game this year was Missouri, who's like bottom of the barrel SEC. And that just goes to show you that, too, the SEC is just built different.
Yeah, and look, they're not going away because Georgia has 4 road games all of next year. And like 2 of them are like Vanderbilt. And 2 of them are like Vanderbilt and Georgia Tech. So it's not going away, man. Like they're going to be hanging around, and that I think they're like talking. Can't Stetson come back, and like might he come back?
There's no way. There's no way, dude. Like he walked on at Bama. Let me see if I have this story straight because it's so convoluted. He walked on at Bama.
Of a way I can pin Greg Burns, like if he somehow ruined Alabama, I'm trying to pin it on him. So you work on this. I got my own things going.
Yeah, he walked on at Bama. That didn't count towards his eligibility because he never played and he wasn't on scholarship. Then he goes to JUCO. What was it, for 2 years? Then comes back to Bama, walks on again, earns a scholarship and plays, what, 3 or 4 more years? Like, the dude's 25. He's going to be 26 next year. Like, he's older than, like, I think I saw like 7 or 8 starting NFL quarterbacks. He's older than Joe Burrow. He's older than Sam Darnold. He's
that's a
older
weird
than
one.
yeah. That one shocked me because I'm
That one
like,
like makes you laugh. Like that one hurts. Like you're like, what happened?
yeah, that one. I think of Sam Darnold and I'm like, he has to be at least 32 at this point,
Yeah,
right?
I'd say the hardest part about that, and I was going to ask you just that exact question. I was like, if you had to like pin me down, I'd be like Sam Darnold. I'm like, he's been in the league like at least 15 years. Like
He's seen some stuff, bro.
dog years. Like that guy. Remember, he saw ghosts. Like he was the one that actually saw ghosts. So,
And that story happened like 4 years ago, dude. Like,
yeah, and like, he's had like a mini resurgence now. Like not that I don't think
yeah,
it was much, but I mean,
for
holy
him,
hell,
yeah,
for him. Like I mean that, yeah, he got off the. Yeah,
and
jeez.
Stetson's out there playing college football, bro. Like, and Georgia fans, if you're listening, this is not to take away from Stetson. All right. Hendon Hooker's also 25. Okay. We get it. There's older quarterbacks that come through the college football ranks every now and then. Sometimes they are 29 years old, like Brandon Whedon, because you play professional baseball. I think I saw even there's a dude that plays like on some random ass team in, like, I want to say, like,
There's like a punter that's transferring. He's like 32 or something.
dude, there's a quarterback that he plays for like Tulsa or like one of those teams that just you don't really pay attention to unless you're gambling on a Wednesday night, and he's like 31. So this does happen, okay? Like, we get
Scott
it,
Bakula and unnecessary roughness.
but yeah, like the thing is like this wasn't a former baseball player story that we're so used to. It's just this dude's just been around the block for a while, dude, and no, he's not coming back next year. He'll be draft eligible. He'll probably go on day 3, probably like 4th, 5th round as somebody's backup. We've talked about it a couple of times. He could be like a Brock Purdy guy, come in there, get the job done. I can tell you, I wish he was on the Baltimore Ravens right now because Tyler Huntley and Anthony Brown just are not it. But hey, man, congrats to Georgia. I'm not looking forward to the next, 8 months or, yeah, I mean, 7 months that we have to endure of just straight SEC coverage. It's going to be like watching the SEC network every single day leading up. But they deserve it, dude. You know what? They recruit their asses off. That NLI money's real. And they do a good job of developing too. I think Stetson's a great example of that. Really good job developing. But hopefully, and I'm holding out all hope here, the Big Ten can catch up, especially with SC and UCLA coming on board. Hopefully that, all tides rise ships or whatever the phrase is. Or maybe this isn't going to happen, but maybe the Pac-12 keeps getting stronger. Oregon State got they got Ugalele, so maybe they're decent next year. I don't know, dude. I'm grasping at straws here, but it's probably going to be another SEC year next year too.
Probably right. Quick defense for Oregon State. They were actually ranked lower than Oregon, who they beat, and were every bit as good as. So I feel for you, Beef fans, if you're out there listening. But yeah, man, I don't think we even need to. People probably don't even want to hear about this game anymore. It's like too sad, But I think we did a good job spinning it forward, at least.
Yeah, I think we stretched this one out pretty good. So outside of that, and again, guys, this is going to be a shorter episode just because, hey, listen, when you have a college football game championship that is just an absolute roadkill of a situation, and then you have the NFL playoffs starting, there's really just 2 things to talk about. The NBA, there's not a whole lot there. The Suns are terrible. We're not going to talk about soccer because I'm a Chelsea fan and they've lost 9 games in a row. And Henny's not here for that either. So baseball's not going on except Carlos Correa's somehow getting $200 million contracts with a leg that's hanging on by a thread. Okay, now that I've gone through the sports that nobody cares about, NFL playoffs are this weekend, guys. We're finally here. It played out kind of how we thought it would. I was surprised with the Patriots losing and not getting in. The Lions did their due diligence. They knocked down the boogeyman that is Aaron Rodgers. That was shocking. We might jump into that a little bit. But that week 18, yeah, it's 18. I always want to call it 19, but 18 played out pretty much how we thought it would. The Jags are in. They beat the Titans. Did any of those games kind of surprise you at all, Henny?
I mean, I think the Lions game was most surprising because I mean, still the whole game you kind of have Rodgers lingering, and you're just kind of used to, right? Like I mean, we talked about the week before, and I had one of my buddies ribbing us talking about how we were all over Rodgers, but like, dude, we're not. In my opinion, we're not really all over Rodgers. Like the reality is, the guy's been in the playoffs our whole lives.
Yeah. We know
So
nothing less.
I just expect him to be in, right? And then like same thing with the Lions, like I've never seen them in and they're still not in, but like why would I think that they're going to win that game, right?
Right.
So I think that was ultimately just like the most surprising game, and like it was a really good game. Like that was a lot of fun, like watching them knock out the Packers, like and just doing it out of spite, and like they kind of came in with the mentality of like, hey, we're just doing this like because screw you, and they like
Yeah.
did it, and like so that was just like a ton of fun. Like that was like real competitive, awesome, just like every game matters type football ish, and like that was sick. So I just thought that game was like great, and like the way they did it, the way they went about it, the vibe about that whole entire game was just awesome. And then I don't know, Rodgers is kind of doing this. Oh, maybe I'm retiring stuff. Like I don't really care because like we can talk about that forever later probably.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. I don't really buy anything with him. I think
He's a showman.
he's
You
gonna
know what I
milk
mean?
it. So like yeah, he's gonna take whatever he wants out of it. And if he's gone, he's gone, and we'll talk about it then. But I mean, I don't even really buy it at this point.
Yeah, dude, I think with that game, right, we just want to give another shout out to Dan Campbell. Hell of a job. If you would have asked me before the season if I thought the Lions would make the playoffs or even get close to it, I would have probably laughed, right? Because Jared Goff he's been kind of written off for a couple of years now for pretty good reason. But, he played a hell of a game against the Packers. He had a great season, dude, like incredible. I think he had 30 or more touchdowns this year. Like really, really solid job by him. He kind of resurrected his career. And then that defense came to play against a Packers offense that even though for by and large most of the season they looked pretty beatable because of the receiving options and all, they had kind of caught on fire as of late. But Lions, like you said, dude, they just wanted to play upset. That Seahawks game had already happened, which again, boo to the NFL on scheduling. They did that really stupid. It just made for predictable events that ended up you're watching games that don't matter. But again, incredible job by Dan Campbell. I'm excited to see what the future holds for that team because they do have the 2 first-round picks. And they have a lot going for them, man. They have a lot of good young guys on that defense. If Goff can replicate even a little bit of what he did this year, next year, and they can add a weapon or two, like that's going to be a really dangerous team. And Dan Campbell, like all for every year that I watch Hard Knocks, it always seems like whoever's on Hard Knocks, they come out and they suck during the regular season. But all the showmanship and the rah, rah, rah that you saw on Hard Knocks, it translated this year. He had those guys believing in being an underdog and being, playing upset. And it translated all the way to the last game of the season. So congrats to them. What I will say is, again, another congratulations goes out to the Seattle Seahawks because they did make the playoffs with Geno. Geno, what a great story he's been all year. Kind of an afterthought with the Russell Wilson trade. A lot of people, including us on this podcast, thought that he was just going to be one of those guys that, they were going to lean on him as kind of a bridge quarterback for the year. And he came out and balled out. He had over, I think, 4,000 yards passing. He had 30 plus touchdowns. And he played an incredible way all season. And that run game, the defense, everything, it was definitely it was legacy building for Pete Carroll, right? I think he definitely knocked off the idea that it was all Russell Wilson, and we saw what happens when those two are separated, right? Pete Carroll comes out on top, and Russell Wilson's crying in his beer back, or not even his beer, crying in his concussion water back home.
Yeah, Seattle. I mean, I will say that one was. I mean, it's great that they are in, like you mentioned. I mean, it's a cool story considering like where they came from. I think there was there was legitimate talk on like whether it was going to be Drew Lock or Geno. I mean, so that's definitely interesting. And they found their way there, man. And the Seahawks, man, those 12, they're starting to believe. I don't know if they should get themselves all worked up like that. And maybe we can talk about that in a minute. But yeah, that was a really good one too. I don't know. Week 18 was actually like, I think, yeah, we decided that's right. Week 18. Week
Yeah, I
18
think
actually
so.
had some pretty good action despite like knowing some stuff. Like the Chargers made it interesting because they're stupid. Like, you had the Seahawks, you had the drama of the Lions. There were still things happening. that still made it interesting. So I was
Yeah.
like surprised. Like there was definitely some games that were sleepy that weren't interesting, but there was actually still some pretty good action. Um,
Yeah.
Jamal
Steelers
Williams'
won
interview after the game was fun. Yeah, Steelers, of course, going 9-8. Like, of course, because they
like
just can't,
clockwork. Yeah.
they can't go below 500 with Tomlinson. It's like literally impossible.
Yeah. Mike
Um,
Tomlin's a hell of a coach, man.
and the Bills, right? Like, just because like all eyes on that game early, and then to have a kick return right away, like
That was
just sports,
special.
classic sports delivering right there. I mean, that's why you watch the games. And for all my talk about good luck to the NFL following college football. Well, this week it got a hell of a lot easier. So should have no problem this week following that one.
Yeah, the last thing I do want to hit on just for the Week 18 games, I thought it was just wildly hilarious that as soon as the Washington Commanders throw Tyler Heineke back out there, they absolutely dominate the Cowboys. Ron Rivera, what the hell, man? If you would have done that a week earlier, you're probably in the playoffs. We highlighted that last week. That was just head scratching that you decided to throw Carson Wentz's dead body out there, but you did, and now you're sitting at home. So shout out to Tyler Heineke too, man. Another guy that he's not always perfect, but he had them in a position to make the playoffs, and it was one dumb coaching decision away from delivering.
Oh, Carson, that's a guy too. Like he's probably Stetson Bennett's age, but it's probably in my mind 73.
Yeah, his body
Like,
probably feels that way
just
too.
cannot watch any more Carson Wentz in my life. I just pass.
I agree with you, man. Well, before we jump into the playoff picture, why don't we talk about a little bit of like Black Monday, which according to Ian Rappaport, they're not calling it that anymore, but I prefer the term. I think it's great. Kingsbury's finally gone. They also fired their GM, who, at least on this podcast, we hope he's getting, and I'm referencing Steve Keim here. I hope he gets the help that he needs because, excuse me, the reports out of the Valley are that he's dealing with his own personal demons. And I just hope the guy gets all the help he can get. But Kingsbury, man, I've been calling for his firing for 2 years now, Henny, and it's finally here. They are in the thick of the Sean Payton race. JJ Watt's retired, but they still have a pretty good team. Looks like they're going to be trading DeAndre Hopkins, hopefully to Baltimore. That's a team that's definitely going to look drastically different next year. I know you have your brother that's a season ticket holder. What are your thoughts on that whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Cardinal fan, I would assume you're just really happy that they didn't go on the cheap. Like, obviously, he was just extended last year, not Keim, but Cliff. So Cliff just being extended.
Keim was too.
Keim's been there. Yeah, was he? I was like, he's been there forever. Like his personal stuff aside, I kind of felt like they needed to move off of him a long time ago. So I'm totally with you. The personal stuff is the personal stuff. I could care less. Just professionally, I think he needed to go for quite some time. Like they needed a change. That has not been, it's not been a good franchise under his watch. Like drafting Kyler Murray does not absolve you of everything else. I know they did make the playoffs a couple years ago, but I'm just glad. I think if you're a Cardinals fan, I think you just have to be happy that they weren't cheap. Like that they just they saw where this was going. It was not going in a healthy direction. It was a good opportunity to reset, considering they're going to probably have Kyler likely sitting for, I don't know. We were talking about a portion of next season, right? He's going to miss.
Yeah, I mean, he should. Yeah, so, more than likely.
So they're going to have to reset. So, I mean, it's a great opportunity to do so. And, I mean, shoot, if they can pull a rabbit out of the hat and get a guy like Sean Payton, I mean, I think it's a big win for them. I don't know if that means it costs them a first-round pick, and is that first-round pick the 5 pick?
Yeah, that'd be wild.
That seems like really steep and really wild, but it's been a while since we've had one of these coaches trades. I couldn't even tell you what the last one was, but I do remember these happening.
Gruden, maybe.
So that dynamic's really weird. And but if they can get a coach out of this, I think it's exciting to be moving a new direction. And then you just have to hope Kyler's healthy, and whoever you bring in, i.e., could it be a Sean Payton, is a guy that can help develop a quarterback who needs help, I think.
Yeah, and I think even the whole New Orleans requesting a first round pick, I think that's almost blown out of proportion. I think that probably came out of New Orleans because they don't have a first round pick this year due to them trading up for Chris Olave. And they are just in cap hell, and they don't have a great roster, even though they almost made the playoffs. I'll give them some credit there, even with a bad roster. and they just really don't have a lot of picks. So maybe that's a little bit of that smoke. I can't see a situation where one of these teams, especially like the Cardinals, would trade a top 5 pick for Sean Payton and then pay him. It's being reported $20 million a year, which is just fat, insane money. And then you have another team that's supposedly leading the race with the Broncos, who they also don't have a first round pick due to the Russell Wilson trade, right?
Yeah, that's right. Their pick, it's going to Seattle. So
Yeah, so I just don't see I don't see any universe where the Saints get a first round pick. I could see like a second or a third, sure, that happens.
That
But
makes a lot more sense to me too.
I think it's probably just a lot of smoke. The other firing that happened, which was a hilarious and predictable firing, was the Houston Texans went ahead and fired Lovie Smith, with him giving a double bird salute on the way out, going for 2, winning the game and costing them the number 1 pick. That was objectively hilarious. Way to go, Lovey. Way to have a set of cojones on you. The Texans are just a joke of a franchise. They are laughable. I'm not saying that Lovie Smith was a great coach or anything like that, but this is their 4th head coach in 4 years. And it's because they keep giving guys one shot at turning the ship around with just an abysmal roster. You know, you have Davis Mills running the ship, and again, not to take away from him, but like, come on, like, what are you expecting with this roster? And Levy got 1 year and got the axe. Like, that was so predictable, but also objectively hilarious.
Yeah, it's great that he got him on the way. I'm just really glad Lovey got him on the way out. I mean, that's really like what made that, because like they hired him to fire him, which sucks. The roster sucks, and honestly, they were pretty competitive towards the end of the year. I mean, like, they really were like fighting and playing pretty hard. Like, granted, like as you mentioned, it's a bad roster. I mean, picture your favorite Texan in your head right now. I dare you.
Jalen Petrie won my fantasy league for me.
I was going to say, like, you're probably thinking of J.J. Watt or Arian Foster, some guy who hasn't been there in years. So the Texans are rough, man. And yeah, that one was. I'm just glad Levy got over on him, because I'm really tired of watching the Texans like hire people just to fire them. Although, as you mentioned, it is objectively also hilarious.
Yeah, and that's going to be a situation where I doubt that they get even an impact guy next year, because you're immediately on the hot seat. Just that ownership group is just such a mess. Who are they? It's Cal. I want to say Cal Ripken. I know it's not Ripken, but anyway,
they're not heirs, or is that them?
No, it's the same ownership group though that the old man got in trouble for saying, you know, this is what happens when you let the inmates run the prison or whatever, and pissed everybody off. Yeah. And
Janice
the same
McNair.
Cal McNair. There we go. Thank you. And it's also the same ownership group that had their chaplain pretty much running the ship as well, which again, just so Texas, so objectively funny. But yeah, dude, I can't imagine a single really impactful coach actually wanting to coach there. So good luck, Texans. Really, that's all I got to say about that. Really, the only other coach openings, we've had a few that have been fired for a while. The Panthers, the Broncos. I doubt that Jeff Saturday comes back and coaches the Colts, because he did just a awful job not knowing how to call a timeout. And I'm trying to think of anybody else that's on the hot seat or close to firing. But a lot of this stuff too might shake out after the playoffs. You know, you might see something like I've called for a change in Baltimore. You might see some changes there, or maybe some coaches retiring or what have you. So, you know, tune into the podcast. We'll be covering that as they happen. But definitely some things happening within the NFL postseason already. Looking at the playoff picture, we will start out with the first game this Saturday. Yes, we have games this Saturday. We have one at 2:40 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, so check your clocks accordingly. But we have the Seahawks at the Niners. Right now, it's a pretty big spread. The Niners are favored by 9.5 points. 2-score game. That over/under set at 42. And I think, honestly, looking at that game, that's probably pretty accurate of an estimation by Vegas, because as much great things as we said about Seattle 5 minutes ago, the 49ers seemingly look like a wagon right now. Brock Purdy's playing great. which the wheels have not fallen off that bus yet. That defense is absolutely incredible. Their defensive coordinator, D'Amico Ryans, former Texan great, should get some looks at some head coaching gigs. That team right there could make some noise in the postseason. What are your thoughts on that game, Henny?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at that game, and I just look at it's. I saw there's chances of showers. Obviously, they've been seeing a lot of rain on the West Coast, especially in that San Francisco area.
And
That could
Cali or
continue.
LA, yeah.
If that's a slower field and it's rainy and it's wet, you might think about Seattle, but really that's just to me screams Niners defense absolutely dominating,
Yeah.
and the Niners offense just getting enough out of the run game and throwing the ball to tight end and having Purdy manage the game. So I honestly could see a very much just like a low scoring. Seahawks always feel like they're in it, but they're never really in it as the Niners defense squeezes them out.
Yeah.
And wins. I mean, that's kind of how I see it playing out, but anything could happen. It's all possible. If you're a Seahawks fan, I don't think you have to turn the game off or anything. It's a rookie quarterback or, virtually a rookie quarterback who's unproven in the playoffs. So there's certainly things to be like optimistic about, but I'm just looking at the under in that game. I feel like it could just very well be like two inexperienced quarterbacks, really intense defense when it comes to the playoffs, and we see low scoring and the Niners are a better squad.
Yeah, the only thing going for the Seahawks would be that Kyle Shanahan is awful in the playoffs. He always makes just odd decisions, and having a rookie quarterback out there, a undrafted free agent at the helm, mistakes could be made. And that Seahawks defense was a lot tougher than people expected they were this year. But they do rely really heavy on the young guys too. I mean, their best corner was like a 3rd-round pick this year. Granted, he was incredible. He had like 5 or 6 picks, but it could be tough sledding for Seattle, but my only saving grace there, if you want to play a heavy underdog, would be that Shanahan collapses in the playoffs every year.
Yeah, I think I don't know. For me, that'd be tough to bet against. I mean, like as much as he has had his collapses, like the guy also has been to a Super Bowl. They win games.
That he ended up losing when he was up 28-3. But I get what you're saying. I get where you're going.
He's the offensive coordinator of a team that gave up a lot of points defensively. But yeah, I mean, I tend to like let him slide on that one. I don't really have a hard time holding that one over his head, but I understand.
Yeah. I just got to throw my cheap shot out there as an easy one.
Oh yeah, take the fire away. I mean, I'm not a Niners fan. I'm okay, but
Awesome. Well, the next game we have on Saturday, we only have 2 of them, but it is dear and near to Mr. John Henningson's heart. We have the Chargers at the Jacksonville Jaguars, taking place in Duval. This is a game that was played earlier in the season, didn't go Henny's way. The Chargers unfortunately dropped that one, but this is a pretty different Chargers team going into it, right, John?
yeah, it's a completely different team. I mean, that was coming off the cracked ribs of Herbert as well, so he wasn't really a full go in that game. And then we can talk about the litany of other injuries, but we've done that, hundreds of times. And really, the team is just as a general vibe has really gotten better. Now, whether Staley ruined that all last week by just his pure, absolute bullshit nonsense. Nonsensical fuckery. I don't know what else to call it. I mean, I literally text you like just to take folks back. Like I'm texting you like basically as soon as I see the Ravens aren't going to play guys in like one quarter into your game because you guys have decided and taken the safe route of benching everybody. I'm like, hey, thanks, man. Like classy move.
Smart team,
dude. Not sure what you guys have going on over there, but real classy just to let the Chargers go ahead and secure this 5 seed. We'll take our chances in Jacksonville. Let's get these boys some rest. And then, they roll out in the first quarter, and I'm going, sure, man, I get it. Let's see if we can just pop off 7 points, and then we can just sit down old Herbie. Just let him get a drive in, kickstart those tires, get the feels. And then it's just like, dude, and then it's like the second quarter, and then you're like, all right, well, we got through the half, and like we only lost Mike Williams. I mean, how bad could it be? It's just a premier wide receiver. It's not a big deal.
God forbid Herbert goes into his first playoff game with his whole cast.
Yeah, dude. And then it continues. They come out in the second half, and I'm just like, this is like absolute insanity. And it takes until like mid fourth quarter before we see Chase Daniels, or like early fourth quarter, I guess maybe. I'm like, this guy is unbelievable. And I'm just like watching it. I'm like, Like, do I even want this team to win, or do I just want this asshole to go get absolutely shellacked in Jacksonville, and then we can jump in on the Sweet Six? Because I do think there's some coaches out there that are looking pretty good right about now. And I'm not like I don't love firing Chargers coaches. I generally that's not like my favorite thing to do. We once fired Schottenheimer to get to North Turner. So I know it's not always better on
14
the
and
other
2.
side. So yeah, exactly. So I don't really like love screaming for guys' heads, but what an asshole. I mean, I
Just
just
a
like
dick move.
just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe my eyes. And then like I just like what are we doing? So if he didn't ruin everything, and if everything's fine, we're generally pretty healthy. There are some indicators that Mike Williams might play, but he hasn't practiced all week, which according to some folks has always been the plan. But I think we do have a much better chance. And honestly, the line keeps moving towards the Chargers. Like obviously the money's going that way. People seem to feel really good about the Chargers. Jacksonville wasn't incredibly impressive last week in getting through the Titans, but the Chargers haven't been really impressive beating everybody, including the Titans this year either. So I think we're going to get a good game, man. I think it's going to be close. And because we have Herbert, I think we absolutely have a chance. And I definitely, like our chances in that one. But then again, Staley's still going to be in the building, isn't he?
Yeah, he sure is, dude. And, now that I've let you wax poetic about your Chargers, why don't we talk a little bit about the Jags and how they got here? Obviously, the debacle that was the Urban Meyer saga last year, that proved to be pretty much all on Urban, right? The Jags were not good last year. Trevor Lawrence was not good last year. And I guess it just ended up all being because their coach was too busy grinding up on the ladies at the bar stool. But, they insert Doug Peterson this year. He's tried and proven. He has won a Super Bowl. He's always been looked upon as a hell of a coach. It's just when you're coaching in Philly, you have a very short leash as it is. He comes in there, really helps unlock that potential that we all thought we would see out of Trevor Lawrence. He had a hell of a year, really nice rebound year. That defense was really good all year. Devin Lloyd was a hell of a first-round pick to pair with Olakun, who they picked up from the Falcons. And the rest of that defense just played really well. Josh Allen had a hell of a game last week, taking that fumble recovery to the end zone. And this is a dangerous team, man. Like my Baltimore Ravens played the Jaguars earlier, and it was a similar situation where we had injuries, and it's easy to write off, but it was still a good team, man. Trevor Lawrence is out there moving the pocket around, making big throws, moving the chains. He comes up pretty clutch every now and again. So I hope your team is fully healthy, because I think if they go into the game healthy, they stand a very good chance, just because I think you guys are hot at the moment. But this is definitely not a pushover game, and it is in Jacksonville. And as much as we like to give those fans hell just because they are the epitome of Florida, man, that's a tougher place to play, man. It's humid. Even this time of the year, it's those fans are just wild as hell. And the simple fact is you're not at home. But what I will say is the Chargers are used to not playing at home, because they haven't had a home game all year.
Ever. Basically almost ever, since like 98 or something. But yeah, I mean, no, I think that's it, man. It's like, you're right. It's gonna be a problem, and like those Jacksonville fans are gonna be fired up. It's been a minute for them. They're gonna have that mascot in his Speedo, and all the fans are gonna have their shirts off. There's gonna be people jumping in that pool. It's gonna be a wild scene. So we're up against it. Plus, don't they have, maybe that's the Panthers. Did the Panthers or the Jaguars have that giant leopard that comes out onto the field and does weird stuff? You know what I'm talking about? Like
so we're both confused, because I just called him Sir Purr. That's the guy in Carolina that Robbie Anderson didn't recognize. His name is Jackson DeVille. And yes, he jumps from like freaking cranes in the sky, and he stunts in his Speedos and all that kind of stuff too. So,
all right, well, they're teal teams, Dugan. There's not that much, it's not our fault. Like they came
both
in at the same
cats,
time. They're
right?
both, they're both cats. They're they're newish.
New to
Teams
us.
are basically brand new. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, dude. But again, hey, that'll be one that I definitely want to watch. That'll be a really good game. Going into Sunday's game, the first one we have on the docket is the Dolphins at the Bills. The Bills are obviously very emotionally charged. They have a lot to play for with Damar Hamlin. With that said, Damar Hamlin was having a hell of a year. I don't know if anybody has stopped and realized that with everything going on, which I don't blame you if you haven't. but he was a huge part of their defense. They already lost Von Miller, so they are not perfect how a lot of people are painting them to be. Offensively, they're very strong. Obviously, Josh Allen had an awesome year. Their run game is better than you think it is with Devin Singletary and James Cook, but it's still not super impactful, but it doesn't need to be when you have Josh Allen just rushing for 65 yards a game. And the rest of that team, obviously we saw it all year, they're kind of a wagon. They're really good. And fortunately for them, they're playing a Dolphins team that it's not looking like they're going to have Tua. And thank God they're not. Tua, you've had 3 concussions this year, bro. Like, call it a year, dude. Get the help you need. Rest that head. I mean, Luke Kuechly, for God's sakes, retired after having 3 concussions in his whole career. You just had 3 in a season. So roll it out there with Skyler. He's been okay in the few games that he's played. He got a little banged up in this last week's game against the Jets, but he came back and helped them win the game. The rest of that team, though, is pretty strong, right? Like, arguably probably the best wide receiver core in the NFL with, the 2 that they have with Waddle and Hill, just insane speed. And then the run game is pretty good, as you would expect from a Mike McDaniel's coach team. And then Gesicki's having a good year too. That defense is a little bit prone to big plays, as we've seen. But, I don't think any of us here on this podcast are expecting the Dolphins to go in and give a fight to the Bills anyway. I think we're both thinking Bills are going to win pretty big, right, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think you laid it out really nice. And I think really whatever you think about the Bills, I think, yeah, like you have that emotional piece going. And so I just can't see that stopping, not for a Bills or a Dolphins team that really is just like limping in. I really the thing to me is like the Dolphins just do not really scare me in this scenario. The Bills know what they're dealing with this team. They played them twice this year, and they're not going to be at full strength. So I just think without Tua, without really having that engine, which, debatable like what Tua even is at this point, which I don't even
There's
really
your
like.
Prius, bro.
Yeah, yeah, dude. It's like it sucks, like because I don't even. It's tough to like. I don't even want to evaluate him because it's just like I just like you mentioned, like just go get healthy, dude. Like just go get healthy, but because it's like hard to evaluate him because you're like I don't even know if he's like bad or concussed or like this or that or good or like there's too much going on there. They're too unpredictable. I just think that's like Bills rolling and. Probably the game I'm least interested in this weekend other than, kind of watching that Bills crowd early. But then I'm just kind of hoping the Bills put them away and we can all do something else for another hour.
Yeah, dude. I think if I'm going to compare Tua Tagovailoa to a car, it's probably a Tesla because when they came out, everybody wanted one. They were very, very like highly sought after. And as they've gone about for a few years, they're still pretty good, but they have their issues like running into people. Due to the auto drive, the car batteries explode and you can't put them out until they're done, being on fire. And similar to Tua, very highly sought after, but has his own issues with health. So yeah, Tua is definitely like a Tesla. So I like the comparison. Maybe not a Prius, but I'll give him Tesla. Is that fair?
Yeah. Plus, did you see that? I don't know. I can go on this whole Tesla tangent. I've seen there's so much Tesla stuff out there, but yeah, I think it's a good comparison, and I'll just let it go there. Other than I did see there's like some random article where like a family of 4 like went off a highway in a Tesla in California, but they were okay. To which like Elon basically replied something like, "Sweet."
Yeah. And you know what? The Dolphins are okay. They made it to the playoffs, so very much Tesla-like. So,
sweet.
Let's go Miami Teslas. All right. Yeah. So next game we got is at 2:30. That is the Giants at the Vikings. This game, I think, just really comes down to a couple things, right? Is Danny Dimes real? Can Saquon Barkley get going? And is Kirk Cousins ready for primetime football again? Because good Lord, when that man plays under the bright lights, he tends to wither. So we'll find out. That is a very strong Vikings team, though. That pass rush is awesome. Justin Jefferson is just an insane talent. And Kirk did play pretty well throughout the year. I will say the one thing that the Vikings do well is stop the run. The Giants' whole offense is predicated on that. But the Giants' offense is also pretty unique in the fact that they run a lot of RPO action, a lot of play action, feeding the rock to Saquon. So it's going to be a tough test for the Vikings. The Giants are no pushover. We saw that all year. I'm sure they had their moments where you're like, all right, same old Giants. But by and large, man, they were a good team this year. And that defense, they blitz a lot under Wink Martindale. And they have some guys. So what are your thoughts on this game, dude?
I feel like this is the most likely game to be absolutely bonkers this weekend. Like, this is just the game. Like, the Vikings generally will deliver a weird playoff game of some sort. And this, like, just feels like that game. Like, I feel like this is a game you don't want to miss because I feel like weird stuff can happen. Like, this is either the Vikings doing their crazy comeback or either taking their giant lead. This could be, you know, like what am I supposed to expect from Kirk Cousins and Daniel Jones? Like, they feel like they're perfectly matched for each other because you both believe and don't believe in them in similar ways. Like, both of them, it's like, can they really win the big one? And then there is some like really good talent on the field, like as you mentioned in Jefferson and Barkley and some of those guys where you might see some big plays with some defenses that, as you mentioned, the Giants are probably going to take some chances, and the Vikings have shown a propensity to give up points in some ways. So it's the highest like over under I think for the weekend, and I think this is like going to be like the most like just entertaining game of like if you don't have a dog in the fight. Like, I think this one actually is really just like interesting. It has the potential to be weird.
Yeah, that over-under is set at 48. So you're right, dude. That is kind of crazy. But Brian Dable has those boys humming in New York, and we've seen the Vikings be able to put up a lot of points, like you said. So good call out there. I agree with you, man. I think that game could be all over the place. It's really anybody's choice. Vegas kind of sees it the same way. It's only a 3-point difference on the spread. So, hey, that's going to be a fun one. The last game for Sunday is one near and dear to my heart. Ravens at Bengals. It's just a replay of Week 18. And, you know, during the season, those two teams split in terms of win-loss. First time around, Ravens went in and beat the Bengals in Baltimore. Second game around, Bengals pulled out a win against the Ravens B team. And as much as I want to say, hey, the Ravens showed that even not playing all their starters, they can be a tough out. I just, to be honest with you, dude, I don't have any confidence in this team. And that's because of the news that came out today. For the last 2 to 3 weeks, we've been saying, hey, if Lamar gets back healthy or somewhat healthy, you know, the Ravens could go, you know, be the team you don't want to play in the playoffs. They have a really good defense. Roquan Smith, you know, rightfully got paid yesterday. They have a good run game. They don't have a passing game, but that hasn't deterred them all too much. But it really hasn't deterred them that much because of the greatness of Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson came out on Twitter today, put out his own message, didn't rely on the team because God knows John Harbaugh is not going to divulge anything. He said that when he originally got hurt, it was diagnosed as a severe level 2 PCL strain, but it was leaning more towards a level 3. I did see, because we all have seen them, right? The Twitter doctors out there, there actually are legitimate doctors that put out their own opinions on Twitter, which I think is just the damnedest thing. A lot of people were saying that this typically requires surgery. You can heal on your own, but it takes a lot longer than what they initially diagnosed it as. And Lamar, unfortunately, is not playing on Sunday against the Bengals. So it's going to be Tyler Huntley if his arthritis or whatever he was going through with his shoulder is better, or it's going to be another dose of Anthony Brown, which, by the way, yeah, he threw 2 picks, but he made some nice little back shoulder throws. You know, they were the victim of a Sammy Watkins fumble, like you have never seen that before, and just a couple ill-timed picks. But by and large, I thought the Ravens held up pretty good last weekend. But if it is being reliant on those two things, I have zero confidence that they'll come out of Cincinnati with a win, simply because I think Joe Burrow is very, very good. That receiving core is very good. Granted, T. Higgins did get banged up. He hasn't really practiced this week. And their right guard, Ali Marpet, had a pretty gruesome injury in that game. The Bengals were pulling a real Chargers against the Ravens, decided to play all their starters the whole game, and they were getting beat up pretty good. And they were getting beat up so much, they resorted to bitching after the game that the Ravens were trying to play dirty. I will normally If I think the Ravens are playing dirty, I'll be the first to admit it. They were not playing dirty. It was just hard-nosed football, AFC North style football, and the Bengals kind of showed their colors with that. But I don't know, man. I have zero confidence. You have an outside opinion. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, there's no way, dude. It's going to be the like. I hate to say it, but it's just like there's just
Yeah.
without Lamar, this is just not the same, right? I mean, it's just as simple as the quarterback situation, and I think the Bengals are a scary team, anyways. So it's not
Yeah.
like
They were in the Super Bowl, dude.
Lamar's coming back. Like if you told me Lamar's coming back, I mean, I'd say you have a puncher's chance, but I'd probably still be picking the Bengals. I mean, I just think it's a good team
Yeah.
in Cincinnati. They're going to be at home, and I think like they'll handle business. But what I will appreciate is if the Ravens want to keep up some hard nosed football and make some people pay and make some bodies feel a little different for the following week. I don't know how the seeding's going to shake out or if anything magical is going to happen with my Chargers, but if you can continue to just do the things you're doing, we'll let Staley do whatever it is that he does.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll try their best, I'm sure, man. So I will say this, just ending the conversation of the Ravens with Lamar not being able to play. This is the second year in a row. I mentioned this last week. Second year in a row, he's not able to finish a season. I will come to his defense to say that both times he got injured, it was in the pocket. So all you detractors and haters that are like, oh, look, another running quarterback that gets hurt all the time. Ha, ha, ha. It wasn't running. It was just like anybody else, got hurt in the pocket. But it is concerning that 2 years in a row he hasn't been able to finish a season. And I know, Henny, you are his biggest supporter in terms of the fully guaranteed contract. But let me ask you, now that this has happened, I know you're probably going to still say, yeah, I would still give him a fully guaranteed contract because he's a unanimous MVP. But does it give you any slight pause to do it?
Yeah, it does, right? I mean, look, there's a couple different ways to look at this, and I'm really a proponent of. I have long thought, like much like the way the NFL treats running backs, that you could do something pretty similar with quarterbacks, and there's definitely something to be said about having those rookie contract deals with
Yep.
quarterbacks in terms of what you can do with the rest of your roster. So if that's the move, I totally understand it. Like my contention with the Lamar deal has just kind of always been I think what I've been confused about, like when I see like kind of the Ravens fandom or the Ravens circle, is that like give Lamar the MVP, give Lamar the MVP. Well, hey, we tried to pay him. You know what I mean? Like that was what's confusing to me. I'm like, well, what is it?
Yeah.
Like, is he your guy and like you are going to totally rally behind him, or is this like, hey, no, like we're kind of a franchise that likes to stay on the edge and like I said, you've kind of been like a poverty quarterback franchise. You won with the likes
Yep.
of Joe Flacco and like
Trent
not that it's
Dilfer.
been a poverty franchise, but like just at the quarterback position, like you've proven that you can
They've
win
never
without even
valued
having
it.
a guy.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So if you just continue to stay down that path and that's like who the Ravens are and that's what it is, then like I actually do understand that and it does make sense. And all every injury counts in this league, like whether we like that or not.
Yep.
So yeah, no, if they decide to go another direction, like wouldn't be shocked. I'm not going to spend all my time saying the Ravens are dumb and man, what a bunch of idiots or this and that. I just always was trying to like figure out which it was. Like, is he our MVP guy that like carries us and we have to have him, or is it something else?
Yeah, totally. It's gonna be interesting, man. It's gonna be a weird offseason. I agree with you, man. I could see it going either way. Either they value the quarterback and they pay him, and who knows if he gets a fully guaranteed contract. Maybe he comes down from that a little bit, understanding, hey, I haven't played a full season in 2 years. Or maybe the Ravens decide, no matter what, we're not going to give you a fully guaranteed contract. We're going to maximize on your value, get a bunch of first round picks. Maybe they get a top 5, top 10 pick and they go out and get a CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or something like that. And they, like you said, man, they just try to ride the rookie quarterback roller coaster. I will say this. In the history of the NFL, get this. In the history of the NFL, no team has ever won the Super Bowl with their quarterback taking up more than 16.5% of their cap. So there's that to think about, right? Because when you pay your quarterback an insane amount of money, it makes it very hard to fill the rest of the roster. And that's on both sides of the ball. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not advocating for one way or another. I love Lamar Jackson. I've always loved Lamar Jackson. I bought his jersey the night we drafted him. In fact, I bought 2 of them. I love LJ. But Your best ability is your availability, and it's getting to be a concern. That's all I'm saying. Perfect. So the last game of the weekend, we have the Cowboys at the Buccaneers. Tommy Terrific back in the playoffs. The Cowboy Killer himself. This is going to be an interesting one, right? Because the Cowboys have a tendency to lay down and suck ass in the playoffs, and Tom Brady has the opposite effect. He could have a terrible regular season, and when he gets into the playoffs, he is him. He is that guy. He is the best to do it of all time for a reason. Henny, what are your thoughts on this one?
This is a tough one, man. This like truly is a tough one. I mean,
It's probably the
there's
toughest game.
been nothing with my eyes that tell me this Bucks team should win a football game. Like nothing, right? Like obviously at the last minute they started getting the Mike Evans thing going, and like just for 1 week they made that thing work. But like was that just like was that a fluke? Was that just the dumbest defense ever? Like why did they continue to just roll in single coverage with Evans beating him over the top? Or is that like something that there actually is a sign that there is some life here with this Bucks team? Because we've talked about the defensive talent. I think we all like if you're someone who follows the game, you like know it's been there. It's been a matter of whether they're going to be healthy, but can they step up? And then like, dude, the thing is with Dak, he does some things that are very not fun. Now, if they use those two
McCarthy
backs and they're
too.
able to run the ball, like it would seem that there's no reason the Cowboys should lose because they should be able to put up enough points, and then you presume that Micah Parsons at some point is going to do enough to at least make Tom feel uncomfortable, and like they should have enough to figure this out because the Bucks has been a team that's kicked field goals all year long, with the exception of one performance that I can remember. I really cannot believe the Cowboys can find a way to do this to themselves, but they totally can.
Yeah, I mean, Mike McCarthy's at the helm. He makes some oddball decisions. Their defense has let up a lot of points lately. Dak is so hot and cold, but CeeDee Lamb is really good. Tony Pollard's really good. Zeke isn't what he was, but he's still a really good number two. Like you said, man, Micah Parsons is very, very good. He has cooled off since that game against the Giants on the 24th of November. Only having 1.5 sacks since then. But if they can kind of unlock what they had in the beginning of the season, where he was damn near averaging 2 sacks a game, they could be dangerous. Absolutely. But I just, I lean towards Tom, man. Listen, I'm not a Tom Brady fan. I respect greatness, like in any sport. I was never a fan of Kobe Bryant, but I respected his greatness. I feel the same way about Tom Brady. He is an incredible, incredible, incredible quarterback that just gets it done. And that team is kind of finishing the year strong. That's what I will say. Ryan Jensen could be back, which would be massive for that offensive line. And that defense has been playing pretty lights out lately. So we'll see, but I'm going to lean Tom Brady. Is that kind of where you're leaving off too?
I'll just say if you're betting it, you get Tom Brady at home with points. So
That's the smart play.
do with that what you will. I just don't want to touch this game. And I feel bad for Cowboys fans, which is not something I would have ever said growing up. But it has been a long time. It's been a long go. And I think they're in the exact same boat. I think they're looking at McCarthy the same way I'm looking at Staley, and they're going, dude, you either go out there and you get shellacked by Tom Brady and you get the hell out of here, or you win this freaking game. And I think that's exactly how Cowboys fans are looking at it. And so I feel for him, at least in that sense. But man, Tom at home, I can't believe. Yeah, like I mean, I think if you put a gun to my head and made me bet this game, I'd probably bet the Bucks, which is like insane because they've been terrible. I've like watched them; they're so bad, dude. Like they cannot score. Like they suck. I think they suck. But like if they beat it, but like I really don't believe in them at all. But like I couldn't put my money against him if I had to put money. But I'll be keeping my money out of this one. I can promise you.
What are we thinking with Tom? If he goes out this week, loses against the Cowboys, does he retire? Does he return to the Bucks on like a 1-year deal? Does he go join his boy Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas since they just got rid of Derek Carr? Does he maybe go to the Niners? What are we thinking, dude?
I mean, I don't think he's done. I've seen nothing that like Like if the guy didn't want to leave before, like what would make him, what would have this year have done that, especially if his family really is where we think it is and all of that, and he's kind of like removed from that part. If he's already lost his wife over this, like what's going to change about him being stubborn
So
tomorrow,
cruel.
or whatever. Well, I mean, right? Like that's basically like, I mean, I don't know.
That is
Like
what
these are,
happened.
yeah, I mean, these are just stories that are floated out there. This is like my interpretation of whatever. But I mean, if that's what's really going on, like what makes me think this guy's a sociopath? He's just like a freaking football robot. Like, of course he's going
Yeah.
to keep playing. So it's just really a matter of what he thinks the best situation is. I do think like him bouncing around Neil now feels a little bit more unlikely. Like I can't see him continuing to like just do this like moving thing and refiguring it out. But I don't know.
Hmm.
Quarterbacks have done the hired gun thing before, so I would just expect that they kind of maybe run it back in Tampa Bay and try to retool a little bit. That seems like the most likely thing. Like the New England thing doesn't make sense to me. The Niners are
No.
doing so well with kind of what they have going. It's like would they want to like put pause on that on rolling out young quarterbacks to pay time? I don't know. Like so the scenarios seem to be dwindling to me, but I could still see the guy playing football.
The only place I could see him going other than Tampa would be Vegas, and it's strictly for the money, McDaniels, and I guess just the publicity. But I agree with you, man. I think he probably sticks it out one more year with the Bucks and then calls it a career. So perfect, dude. Well, that is the playoff picture for this weekend. It's going to be some fun games, definitely some storylines to watch. We'll see what happens. We'll recap it next week when we have the Chiefs and the Eagles playing as well. Other than that, there's not a whole lot going on in the sports world. There is a Cats game that John's trying to get to, so I think we will go ahead and wrap it up. With that in mind, guys, please leave a comment, rate this podcast, share it, give us 5 stars if you enjoy it, please. Give us some constructive criticism, maybe on the Twitter or hit us up on TikTok, like the whole state of Georgia does, or comment on our Instagram or Facebook. We are on all those platforms. We're on all the different apps: Spotify, Apple, Audible, Amazon, whatever. But yeah, share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your enemies. I don't care. Get our voice out there. We would appreciate it. Henny, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, but just be glad that the PGA. So yes, I guess the answer is yes because I'm saying no and then bringing thoughts. So like that's the kind of guy you're dealing with. PGA Tour coming back, second tournament in Hawaii. So starting to come back into swing. So just excited for some new things. Like as football starts to dwindle down, and I know everybody gets sad about that. Just know the NBA is going to ramp up. The trade deadline will be here. We'll have the PGA Tour rolling in. Spring training, they'll start reporting. So sports world never ends, man, and warmer weather's coming too, which is, after a while becomes real nice too. So,
Yep. Live Tour will be in Tucson. Maybe John and I will make our way out there. Maybe we won't. We'll find out. That's why you subscribe to the podcast, so you find out if we go do that. So keep that in mind. And with that, I'll say go Cats as they play Oregon State right now. And we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.